So with that, I'm going to hand over to Will to help us get started thinking about changes in the digital environment of mental health care and what that means for you. Will?
Thank you, Patty. Hello and welcome, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining the presentation today and for participating in this incredibly important discussion about greater adoption of digital therapeutics and solutions within the healthcare industry. In the past 12 months, COVID has irrevocably upended the state of patient care in the United States, with many of these changes likely to persist indefinitely. Already a growing sector of the healthcare industry, digital therapeutics and remote care technology quickly became buzzwords within the industry as millions of practices, physicians, and patients engaged with the technology. The rapid influx of new adoptees has been a boon for digital therapeutics manufacturers eager to extol the virtues and values of these technologies. Aging patient populations, along with the high prevalence of many chronic diseases, will continue to stress our healthcare infrastructure and lay bare the deficiencies within it. Digital therapeutics show promise in addressing these demands, but the extent of their effectiveness will depend entirely on their adoption and level of access provided by insurers. The broader familiarity and satisfaction with telehealth and digital healthcare tools among physicians and patients, coupled with the increasing demands on an overburdened healthcare infrastructure, has generated an appetite and immense momentum for these services going forward. As the number of cases spiked in the late spring across the country and statewide lockdowns became commonplace, physician practices experienced dramatic decreases in the number of patient visits. This sudden downturn in patient flow had an immediate impact on the industry. Healthcare spending decreased by 18% in the first quarter of 2020, marking the greatest decline in 60 years. This drop in spending quickly reverberated across the industry. Hospitals reported losses of more than $200 billion in this time frame, while nearly 3/4 of physicians reported decreased revenues, 25% of whom experienced a decrease of greater than 50%. Reduced spending led to financial peril, forcing massive layoffs within healthcare professionals and their staff. 43% of physician practices reported that they were compelled to reduce their office staff because of decreased patient volumes. In April alone, more than 1.4 million healthcare workers lost their jobs. Decreased staffing at practices often resulted in diminished capabilities as well. With decreased administrative support, physicians were forced to pull back time from patient care or were unable to offer certain services due to the loss of qualified specialists. In the most drastic scenarios, 1 in 12 physicians closed their practices altogether. The closure of approximately 15,000 individual practices comes at an extremely inopportune time, as greater access to care by patients will be necessary to treat and control the spread of COVID-19. Looking longer term, the decreased number of private practices is expected to exacerbate the looming physician scarcities facing the industry, with the American medical colleges projecting a shortage of 139,000 physicians by the year 2033. This is an especially concerning development in the minds of physicians. The overwhelming majority of physicians believe that the lack of treatment poses the greatest risk to patients during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whether by loss of insurance or practice closures, the decreased access to care by patients is believed to be of great consequence to patient well-being. Pressures to close practices has not been equally distributed across the healthcare industry. Specialists and independent practices have been more heavily impacted and account for nearly 80% of the closures. The disappearance of private practices may have an outsized impact on physician shortages and patient access to care, as on average, physicians employed by a hospital system see 12% fewer patients than private practice owners. Payers have taken notice of this trend and are mindful of the mounting pressures this will place on their members, citing the intensified demand for specialists and exodus of independent physicians. With no certainty of when in-person patient care would be allowed to resume, physicians have been forced to evolve their practice dynamics. Adoption of telemedicine and digital healthcare solutions has been widely accepted, with over half of physicians reporting increased use of digital healthcare solutions in their practice. Initial reports indicate high levels of satisfaction from physicians when asked to describe their experiences with these innovative services. 68% of physicians now see the utilization of digital healthcare solutions as essential to patient care. There is also the pervasive thinking that this integration will not disappear once the pandemic recedes, with 85% of physicians planning to continue utilizing digital solutions long term. A shocking development emblematic of the meteoric rise in adoption of digital solutions in the past year has been the number of physicians who now see the majority of their patients through telemedicine. 2 years ago, this number was approximately 6,000 physicians. Today, it is well over 100,000. While it is unlikely to expect physicians to sustain these levels of telemedicine use, there are specific changes that, if enacted, would enable the integration of digital healthcare solutions to remain viable. One change that would be needed has already proven to be a significant driver of digital healthcare solution adoption. In the spring of 2020, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced a series of changes regarding the reimbursement and coverage of telemedicine services. These included reduced reimbursement restrictions for digital services, relaxed HIPAA regulations, expansion of sites of service covered to include a patient's home, as well as ensuring that all connected health services would be reimbursed at the same rate as in-person care. These modifications were extremely successful in minimizing the barriers for adoption and promoting widespread use by physicians. However, if these changes were to revert, there is little belief that utilization rates wouldn't be negatively affected. The reimbursement adjustments were crucial. Without them, I don't expect this level of utilization to continue, states a national payer. While the expansion in reimbursement for telehealth was addressed in the context of COVID-19, additional efforts must be made to ratify resolute changes to the reimbursement model for digital health tools more broadly. A key target for digital therapeutic manufacturers must be the establishment of a dedicated codified benefit for digital therapeutics. Without a codified benefit category designated for digital solutions, payers generally are not compelled to provide coverage. This is the aim of the Prescription Digital Therapeutics to Support Recovery Act bill being pushed by Pear Therapeutics and other prominent digital therapeutic manufacturers. The bill, while focusing primarily on substance abuse and mental health digital solutions, attempts to set a precedent for the reimbursement of digital therapeutics more generally. Whether by formalizing digital therapeutics as a billable therapy area or perpetuating the existing temporary exemptions, permanent changes to the reimbursement model for digital therapeutics is necessary for their broad utilization to continue. However, there are reasons to be optimistic that changes are coming. Payer organizations are recognizing the importance of digital solutions and have been mindful of their steady rise in popularity even before the pandemic. The number of large commercial organizations establishing their own digital formularies is a positive sign of the growing infrastructure for digital health adoption. Kaiser Permanente, one of the largest managed care consortiums, has created its own digital centers of excellence to develop a set framework with which to evaluate, integrate, and extend coverage of digital services. Major pharmacy benefit managers, such as CVS Caremark and Express Scripts, have recently announced that digital health tools and therapeutics would be added to their digital health formulary and have unveiled specialized platforms designed to streamline digital therapeutic reimbursement. The Vice President of Lifestyle Medicine for Blue Shield of California touted the organization's overhaul of their Webolution program as an important advancement in patient care. We realized that the old way of doing things wasn't going to work. There's been so much innovation in community health and digital therapeutics that there was a real opportunity to build something different. The revamped program, a joint venture with Solera Health, aims to empower their 4 million members to take more control of their coverage options and harness digital health tools more effectively. Despite the increased investment in digital therapeutic solutions by payer organizations, there remains a large lag in coverage. Surveyed pharmacy and therapeutics committee members report only a quarter of their organizations currently provide any coverage for digital therapeutics, despite indicating overwhelming interest in doing so. Concerns preventing coverage stem from uncertain outcomes and undefined financial implications. A prevailing sentiment from a national payer sums it up quite nicely when asked to explain why they currently offer no digital therapeutic coverage. Nothing yet. Many of these digital therapeutics are too expensive and are data insufficient. I am waiting for a digital solution that can check all of the boxes: clinical efficacy, cost savings, anticipated and actual, and scalable. This divergence between attitudes and practices speaks largely to the barriers that currently exist for digital healthcare manufacturers. However, one may view this as the glass being half full, owing to the fact that nearly half of P&T committee members are willing and interested in covering digital therapeutics, but not yet doing so. This signifies that we've barely scratched the surface for coverage of digital therapeutics and indicates that there is an incredible opportunity for digital therapeutic manufacturers yet to be realized. Payers are adamant about their internal evaluation frameworks for digital therapeutics, and it is essential that all manufacturers be mindful of these throughout the commercial process in order to ensure the successful launch of their digital solutions. Clinical validation through trials is paramount to securing approval for digital therapeutics, as with pharmaceuticals from the FDA. However, what is good enough for approval may not provide favorable coverage and reimbursement terms from payers. Payers want to see robust published data from a randomized controlled trial for any digital therapeutic seeking coverage, regardless of whether or not there's a comparator on the market. Improved patient clinical outcomes and cost savings are the required table stakes for any novel digital therapeutic. Manufacturers of digital therapeutics are being asked to prove that their digital solution provides a clinical and economic benefit to the health plan, either as a standalone therapeutic or when used in conjunction with other therapies. Additional areas of consideration for payers when evaluating digital therapeutics focuses on the implementation of said digital solutions within their health plans. Payers will look to the clinical trial inclusion criteria to determine eligible patient groups. Delivering significant benefits to a narrower patient definition is preferable to a marginal improvement among the general population. Clinical validation within a subset of patients will be more persuasive in discussions with payers and ultimately lead to more favorable coverage and reimbursement terms. Lastly, the ease with which the digital therapeutic can be integrated into the existing healthcare structures is of considerable deliberation during payer evaluations. Development of a digital solution that can seamlessly integrate into the current clinical practices and flow of providers and patients is more likely to promise more consistent and precise utilization by stakeholders. Leveraging IT is critical as integration with existing digital clinical structures, such as electronic health records or payer platforms, is highly coveted by payers when evaluating digital therapeutics. Understanding and framing your utility of your digital therapeutic in the eyes of the payers is crucial for manufacturers when designing your go-to-market strategies. One area where digital therapeutic solutions have seen the greatest success through adoption is among employer-sponsored health plans. Employers have recognized the importance of adopting digital therapeutic solutions in reducing their overall healthcare expenditures, as well as boosting employee productivity. Healthcare costs for employers offering digital solutions have not only decreased, but their cost curves have become flatter as expenditures become more stable and less prone to spiking. Digital therapeutics offer employees better management of their chronic conditions and greater transparency of their healthcare options. By empowering their employees to take greater control of their health through the utilization of digital therapeutic options, employers stand to reap both financial and cultural benefits. This tacit support of digital therapeutics by employers is crucially important in gaining traction with payers and ensuring early access to digital health tools. As one national payer puts it, employer-sponsored plans enable us to provide coverage for a novel therapeutic more narrowly as opposed to our entire beneficiary, thus allowing us to be more open-minded. Employer-sponsored health plans enable payers to share any upfront costs and administrative burdens associated with a novel digital therapeutic and thus make it a more appealing option. Digital therapeutics targeting overall physical wellness, diabetes, and mental health have received the greatest promotion within employer-sponsored health plans. These areas, particularly mental health, are seen as key investment spaces in the future as their impact on healthcare costs is likely to continue to grow. Mental health represents an incredible opportunity for digital therapeutic manufacturers. A report by the Surgeon General indicates that fewer than half of all U.S. counties have a designated qualified mental health professional, and over 30 million individuals do not have access to affordable care. Gaps in care like these are expected to widen as the looming physician shortage previously mentioned is expected to be predominantly specialist focused. Poor access to care is of great concern to payers who appreciate the economic and clinical fallout associated with untreated mental illnesses. Forecasts by the National Institute of Mental Health project that the economic costs of mental illness will soon surpass spending on cancer, diabetes, and respiratory ailments combined. Untreated mental illness costs an estimated account for 1/3 of all chronic care expenses and $400 billion in direct losses to employers each year. High costs and poor access to professional mental health services further highlight the need for innovation. Digital therapeutics have proved capable of improving patient access to care, whether by extending patient access beyond the physical confines of the physician's office, enabling continuous treatment between episodic therapy appointments, or by improving the efficiency of physicians' care, thus allowing them to treat more patients contemporaneously. Better patient engagement with treatment offers physicians larger data samples for refinement and customization of therapy options. Only the integration of digital therapeutics promises to deliver enhanced access, improved outcomes, and greater cost savings for mental health services across the industry. Now that the case has been made for the outsized importance of innovative digital solutions in mental health, how can digital therapeutic manufacturers position themselves to capitalize on the opportunity? The commercial success of digital therapeutic manufacturer products will depend on their ability to provide clear and well-defined value propositions to key stakeholder groups. Identifying and addressing any significant drivers of interest or unmet need within each stakeholder group will be significant in gaining support for your digital therapeutic. Expanding access to care for underserved patient populations, in addition to providing more convenient treatment options, are salient drivers for patients to adopt digital therapeutics more broadly. Increasing patient engagement and adherence to pharmacological treatment regimens as a result of digital therapeutic integration can help drug marketers increase the effectiveness of conventional pharmaceutical therapies. Additionally, the real-world data collected through digital devices can be utilized by pharma to support their clinical efficacy claims during negotiations with payers. With the aid of digital therapeutics, chronic disease management can be improved, thus resulting in massive cost decreases for payers. The establishment of value-based contracts and pricing models is possible by using digital therapeutics to scale evidence-based treatments to broad patient populations. Time savings realized through the utilization of digital therapeutics can increase the efficiency of providers and hospitals when delivering healthcare services. In addition, gaining access to real-time data will provide physicians with more accurate information, as well as enable the opportunity for immediate intervention. Whether by increasing patient access, improving adherence, saving providers time that enables more cost-effective care, or preventing disease progression, digital therapeutic solutions promise to provide better value-based contracts and pricing models to payers. Digital manufacturers must be mindful of key considerations when developing novel therapeutics and their go-to-market strategies. A realistic understanding of the current legislative mandates pertaining to digital therapeutics and the likely managed care scenarios is necessary in accurately evaluating investment opportunities. A strong commitment to rigorous and sizable clinical trial design must be undertaken in order to secure buy-in from providers and payers. Leveraging the sizable influence of employer group plans can enable rapid uptake of a novel therapeutic and provide substantial momentum for broader access. The healthcare industry stands to profit through increased integration of innovative health digital health therapeutics and solutions. Mental health services look to be ideally positioned to benefit from continued adoption of digital therapeutic services. The confluence of economic and clinical factors within mental health promises an exciting and rich opportunity for digital manufacturers, assuming they are able to effectively identify and sell their refined value propositions to key stakeholders. Thank you all for joining today's webinar.
Thank you, Will, for that really great presentation, really excellent content. Now we're going to open up for discussion and address your questions. So we'll start with questions that we already have, and please use the questions function in your control panel to submit any further questions. All right. So first, we'd like to hear what can be learned from the number of success stories within the mental health space for those digital therapeutic innovators or creators who are in product development or maybe pre-launch?
So there's been some recent reports and an analysis by a group at Penn Medicine, the Nudge Unit, that they've identified that provider advocacy is highly correlated with a successful launch of a digital therapeutic. So being able to provide actionable data and in a digestible format is incredibly important to providers. They don't want to have unnecessary data kind of muddying the water and making their treatment decisions even more difficult. Another point of interest that should certainly be focused on for digital manufacturers would be the sense that you need to engage with the patient. Having the patient feel the need to engage with your digital solution is of the utmost importance. Patients are not likely to engage with the device if they do not believe that there's no human on the other end. It invariably becomes sort of a pop-up that they're likely to ignore, and thus rendering any clinical outcome associated with its utilization, moot. So balancing kind of, the understanding that the physician-patient relationship is sacred in this space, and being able to support both the physician and the patient without, infringing upon that relationship is going to be very important for providers or for manufacturers. And, part of understanding that is through continued research and outreach to these groups, these stakeholders, to understand the true pain points and unmet needs that they struggle with every day.
So another on patients. You mentioned earlier kind of an aging population. Are there concerns that digital therapeutic adoption would be limited to younger patients due to a lack of comfort with technology among older patients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's certainly something that's very commonly voiced as a concern as it pertains to the adoption of digital therapeutics. I will say that there have been studies, refuting that and actually saying the opposite, that there is no discernible difference in the willingness to utilize a digital therapeutic as it pertains to age. So this is something that it doesn't matter how old or young the patient may be, they still have a willingness and a desire to utilize. Now, that isn't to say that the drivers or the reasons behind that engagement are not necessarily different. An older patient who has an established relationship with a physician might be more inclined to use a digital therapeutic if it's prescribed by their doctor. It has their doctor's kind of say so and approval. While younger millennials see the word digital and are really attracted to that buzzword and believe that cutting edge technology is the reason that they are so attracted to it. So there's different reasons for perhaps the patient groups based on age for engaging with digital therapeutics, but there's no discernible difference in kind of the baseline willingness and kind of the enthusiasm they show for it.
That's great. I think that similarity and willingness to adopt will be really interesting to a lot of people. All right, next. Okay. What do you envision the role of some of these DTC digital therapeutics playing here?
Yeah, so certainly kind of, not in the scope of this webinar where we focused on kind of securing payer buy-in and addressing their concerns, but DTC and perhaps is most widely utilized digital therapeutics might be in the form of downloadable apps for a smartphone or a tablet. The market for these, I don't see it as cannibalizing or kind of competing with. I believe that just like a rising tide, the utilization of digital therapeutics will kind of raise all boats. And there is a strong, study suggesting that even the kind of the vague awareness or the awareness of digital therapeutics and in particular digital therapies will likewise increase the willingness to utilize and even pay for these digital therapeutics by patients. So the fact that they're becoming more aware of them, either through DTC options or more through their provider, is definitely leading to a greater utilization of their digital therapeutics within the market. Now, I will comment that there's been some pricing studies onto the kind of the thresholds for DTC digital therapeutics, and payers or patients, do not express a lot of interest in paying for them out of pocket. Only about 20% indicate that they would be open to doing so, and the amount that they're willing to pay is quite low, under $20 to $30. So depending on the service, of course, but there is a greater desire to have this covered and reimbursed through more traditional methods than kind of directly out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great question.
Then a very current one. What impact has the COVID-19 pandemic had on demand for mental health services? What does that look like going forward?
Yeah, so I would not be alone, and I wouldn't go too far on a ledge to say that I don't think all of us haven't been thinking a little bit more about our mental health in the last 12 months, either dealing with anxiety and stressors related to the pandemic, fearing for health, safety, and finances. But this is certainly an increase in the field. They've definitely reported higher engagement with patients, but there is a belief that this will not subside or is not going to kind of disappear once the pandemic is more under control. There's been a growing trend, especially among younger patients and the younger generations, to destigmatize the discussions centered around behavioral health or mental health care, and they've really been championing trying to have a more open discussion and be more candid with their engagement with this very important therapeutic area. Now, digital therapeutics play a very important role, I believe, in continuing this work because of the convenience that digital therapeutics provide to patients, along with the sense of anonymity that it allows a patient who perhaps is feeling a little bit more self-conscious or is a little fearful of jumping into mental health care and seeing a psychiatrist or asking for referrals. This allows them kind of a lower bar to entry and might promote greater utilization of this very important healthcare field that they wouldn't otherwise be doing previously.
So it seems like that continued demand after this initial kind of increase in awareness and destigmatization, that's probably good news for a lot of these digital therapeutic providers.
Exactly. I think the increased availability of these therapeutic options is going to continue to drive greater utilization. So I think that if you build it, they will come. I feel like by providing these services, patients are going to be utilizing them.
Mm-hmm. All right. It looks like we have reached the end of our questions that we have right now. As a reminder, people can always follow up via email. Please connect with us if there's anything else that you'd like to hear about. So thank you to everyone who joined us today. So we'll now conclude this session. We really appreciate you sharing part of your day with us. We hope you found this session to be valuable for your future planning. As we mentioned, a recording of this webinar will be shared with you via email along with session materials. And of course, we really welcome the opportunity to personally speak with you about any additional questions you have, how you can adjust your strategies for the evolving digital mental health care environment. So please feel free to reach out to Will or to any Ipsos contact directly. Thank you all and have a great rest of your day.